Hello YouTube family and welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in once again. As promised, today we're going to be doing two book reviews. One is by a local author and that is Haji Mohammed Dawjee, Sorry Not Sorry. And we're also going to look into my all-time absolute fave, Miss Issa Rae, The Adventures of Awkward Black Girl. Please stay tuned as I give you the lowdown on these phenomenal female writers and these two amazing books. Let me start with The Misadventures of Awkward Black Girl by Miss Issa Rae. So the book was published in 2016, but I think I only read it mid-2017 after I had finished season 1 of Insecure. Oh my gosh. And you know what? I came across this book and I thought, you know what? Let me just get behind the woman who has written such a phenomenal series, such a phenomenal story that resonates so much with me. Issa's writing style is very relatable, especially if you are a black woman in your 30s, mid-30s, late 20s. You know, she just writes, you know, the normal everyday stuff that we as black women go through. So this book was a very great read. It's a very easy read. She is using a similar style to the other book that I'm going to get into shortly, Mohammed Dawjee, which is more of an essay writing style. So it's not very, I would say it's confessional writing, but with obviously commentary on things that are happening on a social perspective, on a global perspective, you know, because that is the style of most black female autobiographers. They write about their personal and then they translate the personal and do sort of like a comparative study with the collective of what other black women are doing, as opposed to the usual autobiographical pieces that maybe we have been accustomed to by white women or even white men, where they write about themselves. It's just about the individual. They don't have to comment on the collective because we know that's how whiteness is, right? So as black people, we have, you know, that I don't want to say it's a burden, but it is a responsibility where we write with others in mind, and that's what black women do. I think it's just something that's in us. We are writing not just for ourselves, but we're writing for our communities, and this book is like that. Some of the chapters that stood out for me are the categories of the different black people. And you know what, I read them and I thought, this is me on every level. So she's got the strong black, she's got the basic black, she's got the awkward black and the ambitious black. And I just thought, wow, some of these categories are like so spot on. And although they are stereotypical, obviously, but they make sense. And let me read you an excerpt of the strong black and the hustler black, which is the category that I believe I fit into. This black is tired from carrying the world on her shoulders. The strong black typically comes from a single parent household and is used to getting things done on her own terms. Public emotions are rarely emitted from this particular black. Movies in particular love to exhibit and portray the strong black. One doesn't question what they've been through to make them so strong. We just accept their emotional state as is. The approach? These blacks are extremely reliable, but why would you want to add on the burden they already carry? Offer help and a listening ear when you can. They will be appreciative. Key phrases: what is on your mind? Can I help you? Would you like some ice cream? You know, so it's really funny. And I just felt this is so me. The other one that I thought was just extremely funny is, so there's the 10% black. W.E.B. Du Bois only added fuel to the fire to these blacks, the self-proclaimed talented 10th. These blacks feel as though the intellectual integrity of all blacks rests on their shoulders. Many are outwardly bitter that they have to carry this responsibility, but secretly appreciative that they have been called out as the chosen few. Usually the validation of one's tenthness comes from white acceptance. The 10% are both grateful for and resentful of this. The 10%ers feel it is their duty to redeem blackness in the eyes of all. The approach: feign ignorance. You don't know as much as they do. If they deem you worthy, they will try to keep you at length and flex their knowledge speaking at you. I've been caught for hours listening to these black lectures. The key is to appear disengaged and dumb. It will save you time. Key phrases: I don't know. Really? Where is the chicken? Cast down your bucket. So, I mean, this is just basically the tone of the entire book. Sarcasm. Issa uses her awkwardness to avert uncomfortable social situations. Another chapter that I really enjoyed was the one on hair hierarchy. So here, I mean, I think we've all been there. She talks about, her journey with her natural hair and some of the experiences that she has gone through. She speaks of her journey of accepting her hair and loving her hair in its natural state, and how her hair fell out when she relaxed it for the first time, and she just started balding. And she also mentions, how hair is associated with desirability, and how she couldn't show her boyfriend at the time, when she was much older, obviously, her real hair. She actually lied and said that the weave that she was wearing was actually her real hair, and the guy didn't even notice. He actually asked to see her real hair, but he didn't even know the difference between what her real hair is and what isn't her real hair. So she speaks about, the day-to-day things that we have probably all experienced as Black women and are still currently experiencing to this day. She also goes in deeper into her relationship with her father, and how his cheating made her become a cheater. Issa uses her awkwardness to relay some uncomfortable situations that she's found herself in, that most of us have probably found ourselves in, to communicate some of the political. In a nutshell, this is a fun read. It feels like you're talking to a friend. You will see yourself in so many of the pages. It's lighthearted. You will be laughing out loud. It's relatable. You can identify with a lot of the things that are being, captured in the various chapters in this book. So I highly recommend it. If you have read it, let me know. If you're gonna go get it, let me know in the comments below. Second book that I'm going to be reviewing is Sorry Not Sorry by Haji Mohammed Dawjee. This book is very close to Issa Rae's Miss Awkward Black, The Adventures of Miss Awkward Black Girl. I was actually quite surprised. The experiences are quite similar. I think the middle class experience in South Africa and the middle class experience of Issa in America, they intertwine to a degree. Mohammed Dawjee also speaks about her relationship with her father, who happens to be a doctor and a professor of orthodontics at the University of Pretoria. Issa Rae's father is also a doctor and very stoic, very focused on education. That's the primary thing. Mohammed Dawjee mentions how she revered her father and loved him, but I think to a certain degree she was also scared of him because she wanted to please him, and it's really difficult to please someone who's always pursuing perfection and who is pushing you aggressively so to reach those higher heights, or to reach your fullest potential. So the father-daughter relationship was a bit strained. Mohammed Dawjee says she does understand that her father loved her, but she found the relationship to be very strained because of the requirements from her father to really study hard, to be an overachiever, just like he was. He grew up from the slums of Marabastad and went on to become this great, amazing doctor. So the expectation was there. But Mohammed Dawjee mentions that, her sister was the one who was clever, who knew the maths, who knew all these things and enjoyed them, and her personality just did not suit some of the expectations that her father had for her. She is gay, and how afraid she was to tell her father that she is actually gay, and she actually thought, her father dying would be much more easier than her actually coming out to him and telling him that he's gay. And he literally, when she got married, she literally told him via email that she's getting married to a woman, and she didn't think that her father would respond and come to the wedding, but he actually did, and he was actually quite supportive. So the book goes into a very deep, vulnerable state of the author. She speaks of her mental health as well, which she talks about being in a mental health institution or a cult-like situation at a later stage. So, the book is definitely what I would definitely consider confessional life writing. She really goes, Mohammed Dawjee really goes in depth into her life, and she shares her experiences. But she also talks about race and some of the experiences that she's had, in the workplace. She works at the Mail and Guardian as the head of social media, and she used to be a journalist prior. And she mentions how the dynamics and the microaggressions at work when your colleagues, her white colleagues, would often say that she's pronouncing words incorrectly, but when she uses big words, then they'd be lost and not understand what is she saying. So she speaks of those biases and dualities that she experienced, in the workplace. And she also speaks lovingly of her mother and the role that she has played in her life, in raising her, and how her feminism is not the feminism that's in your face, that's like with the placards in the streets, shouting Amandla and all those kind of things. But she quietly, had her own way of resisting and standing up for herself as a mom who did all the traditional practices or the domestic practices at home. She did have her own way of practicing her feminism, which I felt was amazing. And considering that her mother is also Muslim, that was really amazing. So this book is really great. It's also a quick and light, easy read. I think you will enjoy it. It really goes into the character's life. She talks about her journey in primary school as well, of being called a coconut, much like Issa Rae, who was called an Oreo. I suppose an Oreo is the equivalent of a coconut in the States. And her experiences, of that growing up as well, and as a brown girl in apartheid South Africa. So I'm going to read an excerpt from this book as well. I'm going to actually start on page 1 because it really just paints a clear picture of who owns the media, who gets to speak, whose stories are told. It's something that we know we've been experiencing all our lives as Black women. And I think she captured the essence and the feeling and this frustration of not being able to tell our stories our way, and finally now finding platforms and getting the platforms to actually tell our stories and to write about our stories our way. So let me start on page 1, where the title is "We Don't Really Write What We Like." No one owns their stories and the telling of them like white male writers. They're given endless opportunities for it. They can write about anything. They can pen rants about white men problems and white men wealth. They can wax lyrical about cars and boats and spaceships. They can have reams and reams of motivational articles published about being bosses without, mind you, ever having to refer to sexual harassment, unequal opportunities, discrimination, or unequal play. But the cherry on the vanilla cake is that they also get to write the soft, sensitive, soulful stuff, Like the time one of them, many of them, all of them, got paid to take a 5-star hot air balloon across the universe until they reached the northern lights or whatever. They get to scribble beautiful, elaborate stories neatly threaded with free trips and once-in-a-lifetime excursions. Wonderful experiences complete with decadent buffets. No lives of servanthood here. No minds of servanthood either. They are just out there, writing what they like, and media outlets cannot get enough of it. I mean, that is now chapter 1. So obviously she's saying, I don't write what I like, referring to obviously Steve Biko. So I think you really need to just read this book. I think if you're a South African, if you're a Black woman, in any part of the world, it's very universal. You will be able to relate. She talks about cultural appropriation in one chapter, where she refers to, All Stars and how they've been appropriated when once they were seen as shoes that were worn by gangsters or otsotsi, but now, white people all across Parkhurst are just out there rocking, All Stars, and the prices of All Stars has literally skyrocketed now because they're the in thing, because white people are wearing them. So she makes those kind of analogies, those kind of assessments, and they make sense and they're relatable because this is the South Africa that we know, that we live in, that we experience on a day-to-day. So I highly recommend that you get this book, you read it, and you know what, you can even refer it to other people. So if you have any other books that you'd like for me to review, please let me know, and I would gladly buy and read. You know, it doesn't have to be autobiographical pieces, even if it's entrepreneurship or anything. Let's just read. Reading is good for us, and it expands our world and it expands our vocabulary. So thank you so much for tuning in and watching this book review. I hope to catch you in my next video. If you have any other book recommendations that you would like to suggest, please comment below. Let me know, what are you reading? What would you like us to read together? Doesn't have to be autobiographical pieces. It can be entrepreneurship or anything that is of interest to you, as long as we are reading, because reading is good and we have to read because it expands our world and it helps us to, you know, have more knowledge and wisdom. So that's always a good thing to have. So thank you so much for tuning in and have a good day. Bye.